Okay, let's see if that works better. Want me to go back to the beginning?
Yes, please.
Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
All right, so now it's time for you to put into practice a lot of what we've been talking about. So the first challenge I have for you is I'm going to challenge you to think about how you can use your signature character strengths, the best of who you are, deliberately, and to deliberately use them to help yourself overcome an upcoming challenge. That's what we're going to be asking you to do. Now, to give you an example of that, we're going to hear Judy talk about the time where she used one of her dominant strengths, which is critical thinking, to deal with something that she found pretty stressful, which was taking her son Noah on a bunch of college visits. So pay attention to how Judy tapped into her signature character strength of critical thinking to mitigate this stressful situation.
So a few years back, we were going through the college process with my son Noah. And while I was really excited for him, I also found myself feeling just sad and nervous about how he would do in a new environment. You know, I've said that he's has type 1 diabetes. I was worried about that. And to be honest, I was just really sad for myself. He's very pleasant to have around, and I just knew I was really going to miss him. So I was kind of getting sad and anxious and anticipating this loss on my part, and just really didn't have a lot of energy. And as a result, I procrastinated on planning our spring college visit trip that everybody does. And I probably wasn't even aware of how my anxiety and sadness was showing up until one day he said to me, you know, Mom, what's up with you? You just don't seem excited about this trip. And the last thing I wanted was for him to feel guilty or worried about me. So I challenged myself to kind of practice what I preach. And I said to myself, how can I use a character strength, something that I'm good at and is the best of me, to deal with something that had unwittingly become sort of a challenge for me? So I'm a critical thinker. It's one of my character strengths. I like seeing things from all different perspectives and trying to figure out all of the various options one could have. So I started viewing this trip as a bit of a puzzle. So how could somebody most efficiently cover the entire East Coast of the country? And I set myself the goal of saying, how do you visit 6 colleges in 5 days and still get the information you need, while squeezing in a few interesting rest stops and places to eat and visits with family along the way? So I made this elaborate color-coded itinerary where I had hotels coded in yellow, colleges in blue, rest stops in green. And I'm not going to say that doing this made me instantly excited and able to rise to the occasion, but at least I wasn't avoiding the reality that this trip was coming and his leaving for college was coming too. And over time, I did get a little bit more excited about the trip. And then once it started, I genuinely started to enjoy it. And I think he did too, which is really the most important part. So this is a case where I think using the best of who I am, using a character strength, allowed me to deal with a personal challenge and to really show up with my son in a way I was happy with.
All right, I want you to listen now to Bob share a time where he used his signature character strengths to increase positive emotion during what was a difficult time that he was confronting in the workplace. What's important about this, remember, is that we know positive emotions help us mitigate stress. And what you're going to hear Bob do is he was very thoughtful and deliberate about thinking through how he could tap into the best of who he is to create positive emotion that was going to help solve a difficult workplace situation. Pay attention to that.
So I wanted to share a time when I used my character strengths in my organization to help lessen some anxiety and create some positive emotion during a tough organizational time. We recently hired some new key members of the leadership team, and there was some disagreement about the direction of the organization between these two key members and some of the older staff. So I'm a very curious person, comes naturally to me, and I'm also kind, some would say. So I would use my strengths to, during the course of a conversations, and these conversations weren't forced. I'm a curious person. So in the course of getting to know both the old staff and the new staff even more, I'd learn a lot about them, which is a byproduct of being curious. And as I was learning information, I realized there were a lot of bridges between the group of new staff and the group of older staff. And I would take this information and I would make sure that if there were some similarities that weren't known to the other, I made sure they knew about it. For example, one of our staff members who'd been there for a long time loves the work of Carol Dweck and has been using this work for many, many years. And one of the new members of our team also loves the work of Carol Dweck. So it seemed like the kind thing to do, to be able to connect these two very smart staff around this researcher. And they've connected around that. And because of that, bridges have been built. And it's not just work, though. We also find that, outside of work, connections can be built as well. One of our staff, Sam, he loves red wine, big red wine fan. And he's been there a long time, and I've known this about him. But one of our newer staff, she also loves red wine. So I was able to connect the two of them around red wine, and there was talk of a big red wine tasting. Never happened at work. I'm hoping it will at some point, but that was also a great opportunity for them not just to connect around something they loved, but also share something they loved with each other and with the team. And I felt doing that created a lot of positive emotion, some playfulness, and it helped ease the transition as we were getting these new staff.
Here's an example of Judy coaching Grace on how she can use her character strengths to deal with the stress of job hunting. And so pay attention to the way that Judy coaches Grace through applying her character strengths in the service of overcoming this challenge.
So Grace, I know you're going through a really stressful period right now looking for a job. What's the most stressful part about it for you?
Yeah, so the whole process is so overwhelming. I've got so many resumes out there and waiting to hear back. It's just really bogging me down.
Okay. So what I want to try to do today is to see if we can offset some of that stress by having you experience a bit more positive emotion.
Okay.
And by positive emotions, I mean things like happy, but also things like pride or love, or just that feeling of fun. Do any of those positive emotions like resonate most for you in terms of de-stressing for you?
Yeah, I think the fun. I mean, I tend to get really stressed or tense when I'm stressed out. And when I laugh, I feel like everything just relaxes.
Okay, great. So let's now think about the path to get to that feeling of fun. So what are a couple of your signature character strengths? Remind me.
Yeah, so curiosity is high for me.
Okay.
And so is social intelligence.
Okay, if you're game, let's try the social intelligence. Let's see if we can use social intelligence and combine that with some kind of activity to bring about the sense of fun. Now, this is starting to sound like the Clue game I used to play when I was little, but let's think about what is it that you could do using social intelligence.
Like something that I do regularly.
Yeah, so maybe it's something you're already doing as part of your job search, but we could just like enhance it a little bit.
I travel a lot.
You travel a lot. Okay, so
Yeah.
what's a moment that we could work on there where we could infuse your social intelligence to bring on the feeling of fun?
Yeah. I spend a lot of time in airports, so I wonder if maybe we could do something there.
Maybe like while you're waiting for the plane.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe you're
definitely.
looking around. What could we do? How can we make a game of this? Like, how could it be more fun?
Yeah. Well, I'm actually thinking what I could do is I could, while I'm waiting, look around and maybe make up stories that are fun about like the people around me and where they're going and who they're going to meet.
That's a cool idea. So you could take your social intelligence and your insight into people and create like stories that make you laugh, stories that are fun.
Yeah.
And that'll bring on that feeling of fun. And like we said, that'll help you to roll back that stress and to just get a breather so you can carry on with what you need to do for your job search.
Yeah.
So how does that all sound?
Really good.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Judy.
Sure, let me know how it goes.
All right, now it's your turn. So here's what I'd like you to do. And don't rush this. This activity is going to take you, I think, a fair amount of thought. You're going to need to really process this and come up with some very specific action steps. So here's what you're going to do. I want you to identify an upcoming stressor or challenge. See if you can come up with something that's going to be happening, in the next few weeks. Maybe it's maybe you're applying to graduate school. Maybe you're about to have a baby, and as wonderful as babies are, they can also be a little stressful at times. Maybe your spouse is going to be on a work trip and out of not home for the next couple of weeks, so you've got to deal with everything professionally and on the home front. So step one, identify some upcoming challenge. Pick something that really matters to you, because I want you to work with situations that are meaningful. Then what I'd like you to do is, just like you heard in some of our stories, I want you to identify which of your character strengths you can tap to help you to overcome that challenge. And again, I don't just want you to list out, well, I'll use my humor and playfulness, or I'll tap into my persistence. That's great, but the work here is to be deliberate about identifying the specific behaviors that you're going to engage in that come from those character strengths. So which character strengths are you going to leverage, and how are you going to leverage them?
Would
What
you
are the
mind
specific things you're going to do through those character strengths that'll help you to overcome that challenge?
I'm going to
Mr.
stop sharing.
Bride just joined us, so we did want to introduce him. We only have about 15 minutes left, so Alexa, if you wouldn't mind introducing him.
Sorry about that. I had some Zoom problems.
Of course. So this is Professor McBride. He's awesome. I don't know if anybody has taken his yoga course before, but I took it. My boyfriend in the back actually sat in on one of his classes. He is a 2-time Grammy nominee. He practices a lot and, advocates this in his work, the importance of mental health and sleep and just overall health. So without further ado, Daniel McBride.
Hey, everybody. Nice to meet y'all in Zoomlandia. How's everybody doing?
Doing pretty well. Getting through the semester as best we can. How are
Yeah.
you?
Day by day, another day in COVID paradise, just trying to
Oh, yeah.
practice what I preach. And, it's not easy, but, we've all, I don't know, I'd like to believe on some sort of like spiritual realm that this is all part of a bigger, painful, growing process for all of us on a human level that is going to hopefully, make us more compassionate and patient and kinder and accepting and see a lot of our own stuff, right? I think, right, with all this extra time that we're not used to having, we're out of the hamster wheel, not scurrying around so much. And now we have to really sit with what's coming up. It can be anything from childhood trauma, right? Negativity, fear, anger, frustration, worry, the uncertainty. I don't know. As Alexa knows, I'm no stranger to adversity. A couple near-death experiences kind of changes you and how you view adversity in general. And then you just try to find a plan. You just try to come up with tools, yoga being one of them, and then obviously meditation and working on the sleep and the endocrine system. As I was in college, I had a lot of endocrine problems like Crohn's, colitis, jaundice, Epstein-Barr, chronic fatigue, celiac, leaky gut, jaundice. It was all falling apart. So I spent a good part of my 20s playing Humpty Dumpty. So a lot of what I've learned to just, using food, right, to just kind of help calm the body. And even though we can't always hang out, Zoom is a nice way to just kind of stay connected and hear another person's voice that you care about, so I'm a Gemini, so I won't shut up, so I can stop. You can take it away. I mean, I won't stop, just cut me off, because I know, sorry to come in late. I didn't want to be rude. I just couldn't get the thing to work. So
No worries. We were actually just discussing positive psychology.
awesome.
And Judy sent us a link where you can take like a little survey kind of test, and it tells you what your strength is. And then we watched a video, and it was just kind of like, how you can use your strength to benefit, whether it's your work, whether it's just a social interaction, just really anything, and how to deal with it. So if you had any suggestions or tips for kind of showing off your inner strengths.
Yeah, I think it's a delicate balance because especially now, because we're talking about facets of the ego. And people say, well, what is the ego? Not to get all Freudian here, but the ego in its healthy form drives us. It motivates us. It gives us a sense of purpose and passion, right? To get up every day and feel connected to life and whatever we feel drawn to be doing, or that sense of, whatever you want to do with your career, or what you want to do in the world. And so I think there's a healthy form of the ego that I think we all struggle with as humans, to find the right balance so that we wield it with respect and integrity and honor and, character, unlike some of our politicians. We won't go there, but it's really observing how the ego gets distorted when we're just trying to truly be authentically ourselves. And so, yeah, by bringing our strengths into the world in a way that also has humble confidence, is the term I always use when I teach. Is just finding the balance of, it's okay to be confident. It's okay to have an ego, but there obviously, there wants to be a sense of a gracefulness and humility in how we wield it. And so that we're always kind of taking in and listening to other perspectives and points of view. And so for me, it all comes back down to watching the ego and this need to feel not important or validated. Lord knows social media makes everything so toxic, because we're always online, right, with that format, trying to be liked or get the hearts and all that stuff. That's a whole other conversation. If you've seen the Social Dilemma documentary on Netflix, we're really just trying to really just step up into that authentic knowing of who we are, and that voice, that sense of just knowing. It's like an intuition that what it is you want to do, what you're here to do, and you're putting yourself out there. And that's right, Alexa, that we talked about that in yoga, just finding the confidence in yourself to be able to put yourself out there without fear of judgment or other people, having an opinion about who you are, what you're doing. I don't have all the answers. All I know is that every hardship I've ever been to, it just was another lesson to get up, pull yourself up by your big boy pants and do it, and stop being scared. And so within that is the conversation of trying to figure out what the fears are, where they come from, as far as when did they start, who put the fear. It could have been a bully in third grade. We're all carrying memory. Remember, the body, especially in yoga, talks about muscle memory and fascia. And so everything that's ever happened to us, your organs, your tissues, your muscles, all have like a selfie camera, and they take a picture, a snapshot of that emotional experience. And so that is another thing that's part of filtering through, so that you can consistently bring that strength of who you are and that knowing of who you are into what you do in the world. But also be real and just know that you have bad days. Know that it's okay to be depressed. Know that it's okay to be sad, and know that maybe today's not the day to make those phone calls or do the networking or do that project. To give yourself the ebb and flow of self-care, which has been my hardest lesson about how to pace my life in a different way, because I lost my 20s. I just turned 50. So it's just been a crazy time trying to come to terms with just how to stay in trust of not losing connection to the wisdom and the teachings that I had to go through to remind, like, now that we're really, really slowed down, how do we cultivate that same sense of optimism and strength in a world that we don't know what's going to happen? We have no idea where this is going. We don't, and to think that we do is pretty arrogant, because we are all, learning to bow to Mother Nature, and be humbled by the process of things we have no control over. And I think that's why we need each other. We need to have forums to talk, even if it's socially distanced or on Zoom, because I miss people, man. I miss my class. I miss people so much. And but I have a circle of friends, right? We stay connected, that we know are safe. We're being responsible. So we're being mindful of who we're exposed to. And that's what the mask is about. Just because I care about you and I'm putting this on just to, be aware, So I think that's part of how we're showing our strength, being aware and respectful to each other. It's not some infringement on our rights. You're taking away my liberty. It's a gag order. It's not a gag order. It's just it's just germs, man. It doesn't have to feel like you're being persecuted, So I don't know. I guess that was a long roundabout answer to the question, but I just think you have to, every day you got to kind of do it like a pro and con check in with yourself. It's like, hey, am I tapping into that strength today? And if you're not, be okay with that. Like, don't force the issue, right? Because if you try to like be motivated and driven and something's off and you're feeling sad, like, be sad. They tell us in yoga and all types of like Eastern spiritual work is like be in the moment, right? But honor where you're at. Like, so if you're having a bad day, don't push the feeling away. Be sad, be upset, be depressed, write about it, journal. And I know Marie, I think her name's Marie. She was the person who developed positive psychology. She teaches it in Kripalu up in Massachusetts. And I met her a few times. But it really is just about every day, like, okay, where am I feeling good? Where am I feeling stuck? And then just being able to be, very nurturing of where you're at, especially now, because it's like hit or miss. Some days you just feel right on point, and some days you feel like a turd sandwich. Can I say that? We're recording. Sometimes you feel like a big old turd sandwich, and that's okay. But sometimes you still got to take a bite of that sandwich and then still be able to just, trust that it's all going to be okay. I don't know. It's not easy for me. I'm having a hard time too, trying to, teach this online yoga thing. I mean, this is a whole new world. So I'll stop because I'm definitely taking too much time, and I'm sorry for that. I get passionate about this stuff because it feels like half my life has just been playing Humpty Dumpty, kind of repair my brain and my organs. So take it away, Alexa.
We appreciate the long responses. Anybody have anything else to add, whether it's just a comment, a tip, something that's worked for you? You could either say it aloud or you could type it in the Dropbox and we can say it for you. But does anybody have any comments?
Ask Mr. McBride if you have any. So I actually was enrolled in a yoga class on campus last semester, but because of the pandemic, it was very short notice for my instructor in particular, I guess, just to figure out how to teach it online. So it turned into her just kind of sending us links to practice on our own time. So I kind of miss having an instructor, but do you have any like tips for yoga and meditation at home?
Yeah, well, if you want to stay connected to Alexa, and if Alexa, you want to get like an email group together, I can send you some helpful links. What I've been going crazy. I've been working 3 times as hard to try to create the closest thing I can, what's the word I'm looking for? The closest thing I think can resemble having me in the room, right? Because obviously as a yoga teacher, the biggest important thing is being shown how to do the pose, not follow me, how to do the pose for your body, because your range of motion and your shoulder blade is completely different from mine, as is your hip flexor rotation. So the blessed is my good friend Nick, who just moved to Philly. I've been filming like short segments on weekends, to working 4 times as much for this course online to film the yoga posture portion where I'm actually explaining, right? 3 cameras, all wonderful lighting. Like it doesn't really translate on a Zoom, like a little laptop. You're like, okay, now do this. It's horrible. So yeah, there's finding other links of other teachers that can be helpful. But I have a certain way that I like to teach about the anatomy and making sure that you realize that, hey, if your arm stops here, yeah, homie, don't play that. You're not going to move your arm here because then you're going to have pain and then your shoulder's going to shrug into your earlobe. I mean, just simple things like that to help people realize, hey, respect yourself. You don't have to look exactly like the teacher, and be able to teach that in a way that captures it through the filming, and then being able to like break it down like a documentary so the students watch it one time. I say, don't even practice, just watch and listen, look at what I'm doing, listen to the direction, then go replay it, and then start to participate while you you focus on your breathing, and then be able to move in sections. So a 25-minute class can take an hour and 15, 20 minutes because I'm mandating with love to do it 3 times. The first time you watch it, to just listen and observe, and then you do it again, start to participate. And then the third time you start to have more confidence. And then you got to reinforce it, do it 3, 4 times throughout the week, Melanie. So I'm still kind of whipping this up as I go along. But the most important thing is for you able to see something visually through the online experience so that you feel comfortable with your own body and that you're being taught safely how to execute this stuff, because you don't want people pulling a muscle or doing something that's like outside of what their body's ability to do. And so much of yoga, you see it on Instagram, you got people who looks impressive, but I sit there and I look at the spinal cord and I'm like, man, that person keeps doing that pose like that in 5 years, that lower lumbar is going to subluxate and they're going to have a whole boatload of back problems. And so there is not a lot of consistent support to really nurture and help explain the alignment behind how to do the pose correctly so that you feel completely, yoga is about self-autonomy. Yoga is about my time to be alone with my body, move at my own pace, learn to breathe so that you can increase oxygenation of your blood, right? And improve your organ efficiency. That's really, in basic terms, that's what the yoga is doing. It's improving your circulatory system. And then there's all these other perks and fringe benefits that come with, wow, I got more oxygen in my blood. That means the blood's moving faster through the capillaries and the veins and the arteries. And then the organs feel like they're functioning better. I mean, that's loosely what we're trying to do. So did that answer the question, Melanie? I feel, I haven't been able to find stuff that I feel confident enough to give my students not that I'm saying I'm awesome or anything, but I just want to make sure that, like, when we're dealing with alignment and safety, we can't mess around. It's a huge liability thing. We want people to make sure that they feel comfortable, and that whatever videos or yoga that you're learning from, that you feel that the person's explaining in a way that meets you where your body is at, not just some general, you know what I mean? You got to give people options and say, hey, if you can't do it like this, do version 2. And if version 2 is too tight in the shoulders, bring the arms back down, right? So you have to constantly be teaching and be whipping out options for people all the time, so that they feel, okay, I can't do it that way, but hey, Instructor McBride says I can do it this way. And that's great. And that makes you feel empowered in the moment, because you're doing it the best for your body. And that's what yoga teaches, self-acceptance of where your body needs to be in that moment with the yoga pose. It's the greatest teacher, because it keeps you humble, and you don't have to put your leg behind your neck, and you don't have to turn yourself into a contortionist, and you're not auditioning for Circus Soleil, right? So that was a long-winded answer.
No, don't worry about it. It was amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, definitely what I was starting to learn in those first few weeks of taking yoga was that it's like very personal, and it does require a lot of modification all over the place. Like, you're never going to look exactly like that Instagram picture of a certain pose that you're, because like every single part of your body really does have, you know, different strengths and weaknesses. So it definitely takes a lot.
Yeah, everybody's core is a different state of toning. So the core strength has a lot to do with your overall posture. You know, everybody's bones are different. Everybody's humerus bone, your forearm, where it meets the joint at the elbow, even though everybody's arm obviously has a joint and it locks in at the elbow joint, the way that it does that is completely different. If we were to open up and tear off the skin and look at the actual bone point where the elbow joint is holding the forearm to the upper arm and the elbow joint, if we looked at it, it's all contoured differently, and that's just genetics and bone structure. So obviously certain things like that will affect range of motion depending on, you know, your, not just stress. I mean, your emotional stress will tighten muscles in your back, right? How many of you got like tight neck muscles all the time? Tight low back. I mean, like, your emotions seem to like want to camp out, like they're going on a camping trip in certain muscle areas of the body. So like when something is, what stresses you out, is it Kiara? What stresses you out and what stresses Judy out is completely different. You could have the same experience, but you're both going to have two different emotional reactions to it, and your body on a muscular level is going to feel tight and tense in a different way than the other person. You understand that? That's why yoga, when it's really, you know, you learn it, you take your time, it's so customizable. That's what's so beautiful about it. You know, when teachers can help you feel inspired to meet yourself where you're at. Talk about, right? That's like, talk about healthy ego, healthy self-esteem. Meet you where you're at. That's the work, and it isn't easy. I'm not saying I got it all figured out. I've made a lot of mistakes and picking myself up, and you know, I'm still making them. But I go back to what's been working my whole life. You know, and your food. Remember, get in the kitchen. This is the time to be making good food, making soups. You know, eating sprouts. You know, making lentils and kale, and really watch the sugars, and and just really try to get in the kitchen and nurture your nervous system through food. I mean, that it has a lot to do with your nerves, your stress, and your sleep,
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would really appreciate it if you could send some resources to Alexa to forward to me and anyone.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Thank you so much.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
So it is 4:30. This is when we usually finish, but if anyone else has any final thoughts to wrap up or questions, drop them in the chat or anything. But otherwise, thank you so much, Mr. McBride, for being here to join us for our meeting today. I definitely learned a lot. So even though it took a little bit of while and technical difficulties, I'm so happy that you came.
Yeah, no, happy. It's all a new world to me. Being in the classroom for 18 years and always being in front of people. I'm trying to still present through a camera here with some sense of passion, I guess, for lack of a better term. So yeah. Well, Alexa, I'm glad you reached out.
We're very glad to have you, and hopefully we could collaborate something in the future. Or
please, yeah, we can do anything. I mean,
Yep.
it's like, I'm excited to see. I'm excited. Like I said, the videos are coming out great. For the class, they're really having a good experience. So I feel like I'm going to be able to, create the online version of Dan here.
And
Whatever.
Melanie, maybe we can drop some of the resources in when we get the Canvas page up and going.
Oh yeah, good idea. So the rest of you will also
Yeah,
have.
just keep me posted on whatever you're doing, your projects, your plans, and let's collaborate and just keep the lines open. I mean, everybody is really struggling in some way, especially with the sleep and the fear and the nervousness, and then that makes the adrenals and the thyroid kind of have a tug of war inside, and then you're always reaching for sugar, caffeine, and hopefully not nicotine. Try to work on that, but the stimulants we use to just when we're overworked, and we're trying to make sense of in a crazy world right now. So the more that we can help each other is, I don't know, I think that's part of the lesson that's coming from this. Like, you can't do this trip alone. I would be dead. I would have died 5 times if I didn't have people showing up with a baton to help me get up and run the next lap of the decathlon. So that's what I'm smoking. Smoke the decathlon.
Awesome.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much all for being here, and hope to see you next meeting.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Good luck with midterms.
Nice to meet you. Stay classy.
You as well.
Don't go changing. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.